that was a very quick sneak peek on what Dilip is going to be presenting to the G20 Sherpas in Kumarakom tomorrow. I know you have a flight to catch, Dilip. So thank you very, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to Dilip Asbe, the CEO of NPCI. We wish you the very best of luck as you make your pitch to the G20. Gentlemen, let me come back to the two of you. Mr. Subramanian, let's address the issue of what we can expect next. The Niti Aayog, in fact, has put out a paper saying that digital banks could be the future, that India has a facilitating environment in light of Aadhaar, in light of everything else that we've been able to do with UPI, etc., that digital banks may not necessarily be far away in the future.
You see, digital banks is an old idea. I mean, it's at least 20 years old. There are countries which have floated digital banks, but they've just not taken off for a variety of reasons. What you have had is actually computerization of brick and mortar banks, and then your interface with branches has reduced, but banks have not vanished. But now that you see the building blocks are already there, you've got a payment system, you've got an identity system, you've got your presence-less, paperless, cashless, all that happening. Digital banks is just one step away. It's just a question of RBI as a regulator becoming comfortable with the concept, and it's not far away that RBI will also have to accept reality, that this is the way forward. And India is actually best positioned to do that. And once you have digital banks, and of course there'll be a different regulatory setup for that. It's not a payment system, because banking system affects the entire economy. You need some prudential norms to manage that. But once the RBI sets up and recognizes the need for this, understands that technological progress is inevitable. So, and then you recognize that, you set up regulatory system, I think India can be a leader in digital banks. I mean, Niti's paper is a forward-looking paper. I think that's the job of Niti, to wake people up and shake people up and say that, look, if you don't do it, somebody else will do it, and why don't we do it first? And if we do it first, we again become global leaders in that area.
Yes, this was a paper presented by the Niti Aayog in 2022 on how India can take the leap as far as digital banks are concerned. But Mr. Rajaraman, Mr. Subramaniam said Niti is the IIT of the government, but let me ask you about the work that you're doing with the real IITs, which is IIT Madras on the 5G test bed. While everyone's talking here about 5G and eventually moving to 6G, where India wants to be the leader as far as the 6G rollout is concerned, but use cases of 5G that are relevant and contextual for India and our aspiration for growth, what do we have as of today?
So let me first of all answer the first question on this test bed, I think. So since the title of your session is recognizing real heroes, I think I must place on record some of the finest engineers in India. I think many of them who stayed back in India and working hard silently. I think I would like to recognize them. Like, for instance, the engineers, the 1,500 engineers we have in CDOT. Phenomenal work they have done in developing the 4G core and the 5G core. Similarly, the IITs you mentioned. There are many professors out here who are doing high-end research in 5G advanced, and some of them have got 6G related patents as well, I think. So these are outstanding people who are also, I think, taking the tough task of actually filing a patent. Filing a patent can be incredibly difficult. Let me tell you that. I think it can be incredibly difficult, because getting a global patent is even more difficult. So this is something which actually inspires a lot of us, I think, because we believe that these researchers out in public research institutions, in IITs and in industry are the ones who are driving the nation by creating new products and employment.
Well, they do deserve a round of applause.
Yes,
the silent but real heroes who are working across different institutions on new technologies like 5G, etc. They do deserve a big round of applause. Sorry, you were going.
Yeah. So there is also another category of people who I believe are great heroes. Like, for instance, the BharatNets, the question that you asked, there are, in the last 5-6 months, we have enrolled about 5,000 BharatNet Udyamis, who are youngsters out in the village, who have taken the trouble of drawing the fiber and taking it to the houses, maintaining, answering the customer calls, and making the digital India happen. So these guys, I think they are the ones who are probably going to take digital to the villages. So these guys are amazing. In fact, I think when we send teams out to the rural heartland, incredible stories emerge. Like, for instance, I remember a particular story about an old man who is living in a village in Haryana, whose son was there on a short visit. After seeing the fiber and the digital connectivity in the village, he promised his father that I will bring your grandchildren back to the village now from the US. So I think they are going to host the grandchildren for the first time after several years, because they have now hope that they can stay connected, I think. So these are the stories that you get from the villages. So coming back to your question on 5G use cases, I guess these are early days. I mean, I think the technology is getting rolled out across the country. The feel of the technology is also something which enterprises need to understand, the costs, the benefits, etc. So at this point of time, in the last 8-9 months, we have actually launched an interministerial committee which is working with all the ministries, the central public sector undertakings and the private sector to look at sector-specific use cases. The use cases are in education, in smart agriculture, in mining, in enterprise, within the shop floors and the factories, to look at workstation monitoring. So there are incredibly different use cases, including the social sector. Like for instance, there is a use case where AI with, say, high-resolution cameras wired to the smart city control room can actually enable to throw up alerts about chain snatching or some attack in the street or some crime which is happening in the street, etc. So those are the kinds of things that can happen, that can enable citizen safety, citizen convenience and comfort when he travels late in the night. So incredibly different, diverse use cases are emerging, and we are supporting them. Every ministry is now funding them, for instance, funding these use cases, because pilots have to be run to ensure that there is sufficient confidence to invest in replication across the country. So I think this is all happening now. I think you will see a large number of use cases getting rolled out by the end of this year and early next year.
Okay. Well, we look forward to seeing what those use cases are that you say will be rolled out by the end of the year. You know, Mr. Subramaniam, we are talking about AI, ML, emerging technologies, advanced technologies. This takes me back to a conversation I had many years ago with Sam Pitroda, where he said that while India is talking about technology and adoption of technology, we would have truly arrived when government offices will replace the Nadewali files altogether. How far are we from that?
Okay, I must mention this. So when I left my previous office and I took a couple of months off, I wanted to tie some paper and take it back. And I couldn't get a file pad in my office to tie it. So actually the NADA has disappeared. We are actually in government only on e-office. We are on e-file, everything. I mean, I don't spend more than 20 minutes clearing files in a day. It gives me so much more time to think. I mean, used to have this peon or the class 4 employee whose job was basically to carry files from desk to desk. In most government offices, they have vanished. And I think that's a big credit to the government. This is something that has happened very rapidly in the last 5-6 years. It's a work in progress, will evolve to next stage. But the fact is today, files are moving completely electronically, and not just within ministries, but across barriers, across ministries. So I think we don't get applications for leave or whatever. So everybody is online, everybody is doing stuff. So I think the government has evolved. We have a lot more to do. We are not yet into data analytics in a big way. Government throws up a lot of data. So using data for decision making, these are frontier areas. But the basic rubric of actually working online is right across. In fact, trying to get something physical now is a big problem.
So we have come a long way. I want to ask both of you, Mr. Rajaraman, I'll start by asking you, what are the apps that you spend most of your time on?
I think it's e-office, as you said, e-office, and then maybe a little bit of WhatsApp and DigiLocker and those kind of stuff. You know, there are UPI, for instance, I think. So these are the, and we have a video conferencing app, I think called Samvad and C.Meet. These are also incredibly useful applications, I think.
Mr. Subramaniam, what are you on?
Pretty similar stuff, and I'm not on streaming services, so I don't have Amazon Prime or whatever. But I must tell you one story, and that's very interesting. I think Asbe has left, but you would find it interesting. A couple of months ago, I was on the beach in Vizag on a morning walk, and I wanted to buy dal muri early in the morning. So I bought, and I asked the lady, and then she's probably semi-literate, maybe class 2-3 pass. And she said, "Kitna?" And she said, 10 rupees. And then I didn't have much in I had a 100 rupee note. And I pulled it out, and she looked back at me and said, UPI nahi hai aapke paas. And you felt so ashamed, Here is a man, and here is this lady on a beach telling you, don't you have UPI? She didn't even say UPI. Telephone se nahi pay kar sakte hain kya, And, I felt very, very ashamed. I'm not carrying my phone. But, that's evolution. And I think that's the kind of barrier we have crossed. And the day we ride on this 5G and the speed at which it is being rolled out, you will see public switching to it so fast. And the use cases will develop not just inside government, but 10x outside government.
Yes, that is the hope and that is the expectation that we will see a lot being built on the 5G networks that are currently being rolled out. Well, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very, very much for joining us here at the Rising India Summit, for giving us a